Hi everybody and welcome back to another video with me, Tom Dollimore. I started this season as the #1 ranked manager on the FPL Research Manager rankings. I've got 5 free transfers to use ahead of Game Week 9, so make sure you stay tuned to see how I plan to use them. I hope you had a great Game Week 8. So let's jump in and have a look at how I did in Game Week 8. So I finished on 71 points, which is fairly solid overall. I think there were a few people out there who had absolutely amazing game weeks, but yeah, 71 points, pretty solid. Little green arrow, 100,000 green arrow roughly, put me further into the top 1 million, so that gives me a bit more of a buffer to be in that top 1 million by game week 10, which is always my first kind of target. So yeah, pretty nice game week, fairly solid, but some issues kind of coming through the cracks. So yeah, just going through the team. 6 points from Raya. He's always going to be super solid. Arsenal's defence is unbelievable this season. Really happy with that choice. Usually I don't go for a goalkeeper as expensive as Raya, but I think at the time of getting him on the wild card, I did say, you know, this season it makes sense for me. So moving into defence, we got Senesi in for Gvardiol. Again, yeah, Gvardiol got me 12 points last week, but now the minutes risk feels like a bit of an issue. Alderete, 6 points. Yeah, super solid from him. Yeah, a bit of a dream at 4 million. But yeah, I know Mukiele, who was the alternative, absolutely smashed it this week. So Alderete did that a couple of weeks ago when he was on my bench. So sometimes that's just how it falls. Gabriel, 12 points. Yeah, he should be in everyone's team by now. Really happy with getting him on the wild card when I did. Yeah, good time in there. Moving into midfield, we got Reinders with 1 point. That's not great. He's subbed 58th minute, I think. So yeah, a bit of a concern there. His minutes sort of over the last few game weeks have been in decline. So that's another concern for me. Stack 2 points and again reduced minutes. Another bit of a concern there. Semenyo, 4 points. Yeah, he delivers again. Not as high as he has been, but yeah, we'll take it. Bruno Fernandes, finally, coming in with some points. Yeah, 8 points from Bruno. I've been banging on about him, and I'm super happy to finally be getting some points. Hopefully this is the start of a run of points, and he starts bringing them in regularly. So, yeah, super happy with that. Moving into the forwards. Yeah, I mean, Haaland, don't even really need to talk about it. 26 points. He's just an absolute machine at the minute. Gyökeres and João Pedro. Yeah, these two are becoming very frustrating. I feel like I've said that every week for the last few weeks, but yeah, need to start thinking about how we deal with them. Yeah, they're getting frustrating, but yeah, we got 5 free transfers. So how my team is looking before using those transfers for game week 9. So I'm going to be lining up with no transfers. Obviously, I've got unless I want to burn one, I've got to use one. And like I've said, they've got some issues in the team, so we will be using a transfer this week, one way or another. But yeah, before transfers, I got Raya in goal, Gvardiol. I think he's fine this week, to be honest. But yeah, that benching, even one benching in every few games makes him not worth it for me with the amount of defenders that you've got available now. I think when I put him in the team on the wild card, I was fairly confident that he starts virtually every game. It kind of looks like the pattern is now not as regular as I hoped, and to be honest, on the wildcard, when I did the wildcard, the only sort of earmarked transfer was Gvardiol in this week. At the time, I think it was Gvardiol to Van Dijk. So yeah, I think Gvardiol is kind of a likely transfer and one of the kind of issues I have for my team at the minute. Gabriel against Crystal Palace at home. Obviously Crystal Palace quite good, but Arsenal's defence is unreal. Gabriel, you know, delivers attacking returns as well, defensive contributions. He's got it all. So yeah, he's going to be starting most game weeks. Senesi, Nottingham Forest have been poor. We'll see if there's any sort of bounce under Dyche, but home for Bournemouth as well. So yeah, super good fixture, and he's been a brilliant asset. Last couple of weeks been maybe not so much, but for his price, he's been unreal. Moving into midfield, we've got NDA, Tottenham at home. Tottenham have been a bit lacklustre recently, so And I think in DA, he was brilliant last week on my bench. So hopefully he gets me some points on as part of the 11 this week. That'd be nice. Stack, again, as I've mentioned, one of the concerns. Yeah, it's a bit of a worry because one of his big appeals is the defensive contribution side of things. And obviously he's only 5 million, but with the minutes reduced, that DEFCON potential drops off pretty quickly. So it's going to be tough to keep him if his minutes don't get back to what they were. So he's kind of on the radar to get rid of. But he's got West Ham at home, so which obviously is probably the best fixture to have at the minute. Semenyo, I've talked about Nottingham Forest, but yeah, Semenyo, obviously we all know how good he's been this season, so no brainer there. Bruno Fernandes, like I said, hopefully he continues rolling in the points. If you look at the data models, he's potentially a captain option this week, which probably seems quite crazy to a lot of people, but captaincy this week is interesting. But yeah, he's actually a contender for captain. Moving on to forwards, João Pedro now, yeah, he's not been returning. A lot of people talking about his underlying numbers, and it's not a brilliant picture, and if he's definitely not on penalties, it's even worse. But he's got Sunderland at home this week, so I just... The obvious move from João Pedro is to Mateta, and Mateta has Arsenal away this week, so it just doesn't make sense this week. So I think João Pedro is going to survive this week. Pretty confident of that. Haaland, currently got the armband on Haaland. Yeah, I said the captaincy close, so the potentials in my team are Haaland, Bruno Fernandes, Semenyo could be in there, and Gyökeres could be in there. If you look at the data models, they're all in the ballpark, but I just don't think it's worth the risk this week to go against Haaland. It's one of those where so many people are going to be captaining Haaland, you need some sort of bigger edge to make it worth the risk to go against Haaland at the minute. So yeah, we're gonna stay on Haaland captain. The others are possible if you really want to take a big risk. And it does feel like a big risk because it's not like the other potential options have been absolutely flying. It's going to be Haaland captain. I'm pretty 95% sure. Even though the data models have some of them close this week. Gyökeres, obviously he's not been delivering. I've had a lot of faith with him, mainly backed by the fact that the data models do support him, and I'm not entirely convinced that Saka is definitely on penalties. I just feel like they're going to share them. We had a lot of early, well, I say a lot, we had some indication early in the season from Arteta that Gyökeres would take penalties to some extent. And I think previously shared them with Odegaard, and he's not selfish like that. He will share. The only reason that stopped is I think I'm remembering right in saying Odegaard maybe didn't score a couple, or maybe one, and it just ended up sticking with Saka because he was more reliable. I think Gyökeres is his penalty record's fine, and I think based on that evidence, I think just the fact that Saka's taken one, I don't think we can just assume that Saka's going to be the only one that takes them. So yeah, I think it's going to be 50-50, and on that basis, until Havertz is back, I'm still happy to stick with Gyökeres, especially since he scored 2 in midweek, so that always helps the brain settle on these kind of decisions when that happens, even though it shouldn't really. Yeah, then on the bench we've got Dubravka now. He is against Wolves away, so that would potentially be another good fixture for him. And obviously last week he outscored Raya, but I just think it's going to be more consistent to stick with Raya with these kind of decisions. Yeah, then we've got Reinders. It's kind of like between him and Stack, they're kind of the biggest issues for me in the team. Actually, Reinders, Stack and Gvardiol feel like the biggest issues this week. Actually, I'd say Gvardiol maybe not necessarily a massive issue this week. I think he actually starts this game, but Villa away is not the best fixture, and he's quite expensive, and there's a lot of defensive options, a lot of good ones at lots of different price points. So with the reduced minutes of Reinders and Stack, I think my kind of thinking at the minute is to downgrade Gvardiol to fund an upgrade of Stack or Reinders. Then we've got on the bench we've got, after Reinders, we've got a couple of injury concerns. So Alderete, I believe he's just got concussion protocol, so should be back soon. I think it was said that they're hoping he's back for Everton, so should only be a one week miss, and I wouldn't have played him against Chelsea away anyway, so I think we're fine with that. And he's only 4 million, or 4.1, but for me it's 4. Then Anderson, is the other concern. I think we've just had some news that could potentially be back before international break, or there's some murmurs of that. So wait for any full team news on that and see what the press conferences bring. But he's kind of the only thing. If he's out for a long term, it might change my plans in terms of what I do this week. But yeah, I've got 5 free transfers this week. We've got 0.4 million in the bank. We've got to make a transfer really. So I think my options come down to, and this with my current expectations of Anderson, which is I think he'll be back, or assuming he's going to be back within the next 3 game weeks. I think I downgrade Gvardiol and upgrade either Stack or Reinders. Now, so the options with that, there's a lot of options to be honest, but the ones that I've kind of narrowed it down to are Gvardiol to Rodon. Now that gives me the most flexibility because Rodon's cheap. So that kind of gives me a huge amount of funds to play with over the next few weeks. And I think one of the moves that I've got to consider has got to be João Pedro in game week 10. So after this game week, because João Pedro has Tottenham away, and Mateta has, what does Mateta have? Brentford at home, that was it. So I think that's a good time to make the switch. I think it makes sense long term. So I'm kind of thinking that in the back of my head. And I know Mateta is going to continue to rise in price. I know João Pedro is going to continue to fall in price to some extent. So I need to make sure I've got enough buffer for that. So Rodon gives me that flexibility. Other options are, I could just do a simple one transfer and do Gvardiol to Tarkowski, but I'm not sure I massively like that Tottenham fixture to do that this week. I think the fixtures over the next 3 weeks are okay for Everton, but yeah, I don't love it. Most of these options are assuming that Enzo Fernandez is fine. So my upgrade from Stack or Reinders would be to Enzo Fernandez. And I think based on what we know, he played 45 minutes midweek and he only came off because Chelsea were absolutely flying. So I think I'm pretty comfortable with Enzo Fernandez unless we get news otherwise. So yeah, this is on the basis that Stack or Reinders will become Enzo Fernandez. Like I said, the one transfer option would probably only be Gvardiol to Tarkowski, but I don't love it. It's going to be, I think I'm down to kind of 3 potential options. So it's Gvardiol to Rodon to Keane, which again is Everton, and he doesn't have much appeal at all compared to Tarkowski. He's cheaper. I think he's 1 million cheaper, and this is on the basis that we've got news that Branthwaite's out until January. So kind of making an assumption that Keane will start for that period of time. I think a lot of Everton fans want some other solution, but I don't know what other solution there is. So this is on the basis that Keane starts for a long period of time, and he's a little bit more. I think it's 4.5, so a little bit more than Rodon. Points potential is a bit higher as well. And then the third option would be, I really wanted a Newcastle defender. I think Newcastle defenders are going under the radar. Well, Newcastle defence is going under the radar, but it's because there's so much uncertainty over what their lineup's going to be defensively. So Livramento and Hall are injured and they're going to come back soon. Then you've got Dan Burn has started every game in forever, but they've got Botman's back in full action. They've got Shah has been on the bench, and prior to being injured, he was starting every game. So much uncertainty. I just don't know. My gut says that they continue, and that is the new partnership moving forward. But I can't be sure of that. So ultimately, the only one that I actually came down to was Trippier. We kind of have a good level of confidence that start until Livramento's back. And I don't think that'll be till after the international break. So it kind of gives a good certainty over having Trippier for Fulham at home, West Ham away, and Brentford away. And then in game week 12, it's Man City anyway, which would be a game that you probably wouldn't want to start any Newcastle defender for. So the problem with this one, I really like it short term, but it's almost booking in another transfer because you know at some point he's not going to get the minutes. So yeah, you've kind of got a cheap option, which gives me lots of flexibility in Rodon. I've got a middle option, which is Keane, but I'm not a huge fan of him as an asset in itself. And then you've got a kind of more expensive, short-term, riskier option in Trippier. And all looking to fund either Stack or Reinders to Enzo Fernandez. Reinders, I feel like Reinders is the bigger issue. He's slightly more expensive. And I think his decline in minutes feels more knowing Pep, knowing as much as I have experience of Pep, it feels like he's just coming out of favour and he'll just go into the pool of players and get that sort of rotational minutes, which just completely makes him a non-option for me. It's just not worth it even at the cheap price. Whereas Stack, I think there's been some sort of indication that he's dealing with a couple of minor niggles, and that could be what's driving the reduced minutes. I know they've got options in midfield at Leeds, but yeah, I do feel like he might bounce back and get the minutes back. So I feel more inclined to get rid of Reinders, and Stack to some extent at 5 million can just sit on the bench. It's not a big deal. So yeah, that's kind of my thinking at the minute. I'm not settled on anything. I need to see if we get more that if we get any doubt on Enzo Fernandez. I'm happy with him with the news we have now, but if we get any sort of doubt over it, then that might change things. I'd like a bit more information about Anderson because I might have to do something with him if he's out longer term. But at the moment, yeah, it's going to be that Guardiola downgrade and probably Reinders to Enzo Fernandez. Yeah, obviously I had 5 free transfers, so I hope you weren't expecting some sort of mini wildcard from me, but no, I think it will be the 2 transfers absolute maximum that we'll use out of those 5, because it's all I need for this week. It fixes the team for this week, and making the right decisions sets me up for better transfers or better use of the other transfers in future weeks. So yeah, that's it from me for this week. Hope you have a great game week, and I'll see you in the next video.